Good day, my scholars. Welcome to my school channel. My name is Alexandra, and in this video we'll be going through the JAMB CBT past question for the subject government year 2012. Please stay with us, do not go anywhere, and we'll be right back. Welcome back to my school channel. Now in this video we're solving question 21 to 45. Now let's begin with question 21. An electoral system in which parties are assigned seats in the parliament commensurate to the number of votes pooled is dash. The answer to this question is proportional representation. Now, proportional representation is an electoral system in which the number of seats held by a political group is determined by the number of popular votes. Now, in proportional representation, voters' preference is very, very important. So, for example, when you have a case where 5 candidates are to be elected in, let's say, to be members of the local council, and you have 10 candidates coming out to elect, what they do is proportional representation to show preference, to show voters' preference, and then they eventually elect 5 out of them by what? By looking at the highest vote and then distributing the surpluses from the highest vote to the ones with the lower vote, still according to voters' preference, and then eliminating people with lower or fewer votes, and then taking those fewer votes and distributing it to other candidates, still based on preference, that is voters' preference. So proportional representation has to do with number of seats held by political members, which is determined by the numbers of popular votes. So when we talk about absolute majority simply means more than half of the votes, and it's quite synonymous with simple majority, because simple majority implies a voting requirement that involves more than half of the vote cast. Okay, but the only difference between both of them is that absolute majority is also used for electors. Okay, it means majority of all the electors, not just voters. Okay, so that's the difference between absolute majority and simple majority. Now when we talk about indirect elections, indirect election is where voters do not choose their candidates, they elect people who choose. So they elect people that afterwards get to choose representatives. So the answer to this question is option C, proportional representation. Question 22. The bringing of a session of a parliament to an end through royal proclamation is known as dash. Okay, the answer to this question is prorogation of parliament. Now, prorogation is or marks the end of a session, a parliamentary session. It marks the end, it terminates the session. However, dissolution of parliament is quite different, because the dissolution of parliament also terminates the session, but it is followed by a general election. So the answer to this question is option D, prorogation of parliament. Question 23. The right of citizens to participate in the affairs of government of their country is called dash. The answer to this question is political rights. Political rights includes rights to participate in politics, right to petition, right to assembly, right to fair hearing, and so on and so forth. But when we talk about civil rights includes ensuring that people's physical and mental integrity, ensuring life and safety, ensuring protection from discrimination. It also includes rights such as freedom of speech, freedom of movement, freedom of thoughts, and so on and so forth. So the answer to this question remains political rights. Question 24. A permanent structure that facilitates continuity and guarantees orderly conduct in governance is dash. Option A, bureaucracy. Option B, public cooperation. Option C, ombudsman. Option D, political party. The answer to this question is bureaucracy. In bureaucracy, the system is arranged, or the organization is arranged in hierarchy for ease of government. Okay, so we also know that bureaucracy is a system of government in which important decisions are made by state officials rather than the representatives. So option A is the best answer to this question. Question 25. An intra-party activity for the selection of candidates for elective positions is known as dash. The answer to this question is option A, primary election. Now, primary election is simply the nomination of candidates for the general election, and this is done by political parties. So ideally, no election is done in primary election, but what is done is a nomination of candidates. So the answer to this question remains option A, primary election. Question 26. Radical nationalism in Nigeria is generally attributed to the influence of dash. The answer to this question is option B, Herbert Macaulay. It first emerged, that is, nationalists first emerged in the 1920s under the influence of Herbert Macaulay, who is considered as the father of nationalism. So the answer to this question is option B, Herbert Macaulay. Question 27. Two foreigners that directly arouse nationalist feelings among Nigerians are. The answer to this question is option D, Marcus Garvey and Castle Hayford. Now, Marcus Garvey of Jamaica founded the Universal Negro Improvement Association and African Communities League in 1914, which served as an inspiration to people like Ernest Ikoli, Nnamdi Azikiwe, and so on and so forth. The next is Castle Hayford of Coast, which is now Ghana, and he mobilized educated elites in the British colonies during the nationalist movement. So the final answer is option D. Question 28. The Sharia legal system was first introduced in the Fourth Republic in dash. The answer to this question is Zamfara State. So it was introduced on the 27th of October 1997 by the then Zamfara State Governor in person of Ahmed Sani Yerima. The answer to this question remains option C, Zamfara State. Question 29. The main focus of Nigeria's foreign policy since independence centers on dash. The answer to this question is option D, Afrocentrism. Generally, Afrocentrism focuses on the history of the African people. So the main focus of Nigerian foreign policy since independence centers on Afrocentrism. And we could see that during this period, or during the independence and afterwards, we see that Nigeria supported the fight against apartheid policy, the struggle against colonialism, and we see them promoting the African culture, promoting the African tradition and the African history. So the answer to this question is option D, Afrocentrism. Question 30. Military intervention in Nigeria arose from. The answer to this question is option A, perceived incapability of civilians to govern. Now, there were so many reasons the military intervened, but it arose from the fact that we had unreliable and dishonest leaders. There was also the mismanagement of public funds. We had the Action Group crisis of 1962 and the general election crisis of 1964. All of this put together, and we had the military intervention. Okay, so the answer to this question is option A, perceived incapability of civilians to govern. Be reminded that you can take practice questions with our simulated JAMB CBT past questions. All you need to do is you click on the link in the description below. It takes you to the Myschool website. There you'll be required to download Myschool mobile app for your Android phones and Myschool software for your computers and laptops. Please go ahead and download and start practicing. Now, moving on to question 31. The first institution introduced by the military to exercise legislative power was the dash. The answer to this question is option A, the Supreme Military Council. And the Supreme Military Council was chaired by Muhammadu Buhari. That was immediately after the Nigerian coup in 1983. Okay, afterwards in 1985, it was replaced by the Armed Forces Ruling Council under the leadership of Ibrahim Babangida. So the answer to this question is the Supreme Military Council. If you're enjoying this content, please do not forget to hit the like button, click on the subscribe button, and lastly tap on the bell notification to get informed as soon as we release the next videos. Question 32. The central objective of privatization in Nigeria is to dash. The answer to this question is option D, improve the efficiency of enterprises. Now, first and foremost, what is privatization? Privatization is the transfer of business ownership and control from the public to the private. Okay, so that is privatization. Now, a good example of privatization, or a good example of the positive effect of privatization, is when there is an increase in the number of companies listed on the Nigerian Stock Exchange, it shows a positive effect of privatization. So the answer to this question is option D, improve the efficiency of enterprises. Question 33, workers in the public corporations are known as dash. The answer to this question is public servants. Employees of the public corporation are called or referred to as public servants, while employees of ministries or government departments or civil service are referred to as civil servants. So that's the difference between civil servant and public servants when it comes to the employee. Okay, so they are called public servants. The answer to this question remains option C. Question 34. Quota system and federal character principles were entrenched in the 1979 Constitution to ensure dash. The answer to this question is equity. Now, one of the things it ensures is an equitable distribution of bureaucratic and political rules. And what does equity mean? Equity simply means fairness. So the answer to this question is option C, equity. Question 35. In Nigeria, the agency mainly responsible for the maintenance of internal peace and security is the dash. The answer to this question is the police. The police is involved in the internal security and peace of a country. When we talk about the army, what the army does is to deploy, to fight and to win a nation's war. Okay, and we know that the Navy, the Air Force, and the military are under the army. Okay, so option C, Civil Defense Corps. This is under the paramilitary institution. So the answer is option D because we have internal peace and security. Option D is the correct answer to this question. Question 36. The National Assembly in Nigeria is primarily responsible for dash. Option A, executing laws. Option B, interpreting laws. Option C, ratifying appointments. Option D, making laws. The answer to this question is making laws. The National Assembly in Nigeria is a bicameral legislation, and it is made up of two houses. We have the House of Senate and the House of Representatives. And what they do is they discuss the bill, they argue, they debate before it is then approved by the executive. And do not forget that a bill is a proposed legislation. So it's not a legislation. It's not a law until it is approved and enacted by the executive. So the answer is simply making laws. So option D is the correct answer to this question. Question 37. The major factor militating against the efficient operation of electoral commissions in Nigeria is dash. Option A, inadequate public support. Option B, population size. Option C, inadequate skilled manpower. Option D, excessive political interference. The answer to this question is option D, excessive political interference. Now, one of the core duties of the Electoral Commission is to ensure the integrity and the public confidence in the electoral processes, to ensure that the funding and the campaign expenditure are done appropriately. Now, the reason why the answer is option D is because some politicians have influence over the election in their respective domains. Okay, and so we hear of favoritism, nepotism, and then it brings about bribery, corruption, and we hear of people hijacking the ballot boxes and all of that. So this interference is against the function of, or the core function, or stands against the function of the Electoral Commission in Nigeria. So the answer to these questions remain option D, excessive political interference. Question 38. A major objective of the Public Complaints Commission is dash. The answer to this question is option C, addressing the grievances of individuals and groups. So the major objective of the Public Complaints Commission is to address or entertain the grievances or complaints of the citizens, to be an individual or a group of people against a public servant. So if you have an issue with the public servant, the Public Complaints Commission addresses that issue, addresses the complaint. So the answer to this question is option C. Question 39. The country that championed decolonization in Africa was dash. Okay, so the answer to this question is option C, Ghana. Now, in this context, champion in this sentence, or in this context, actually means the first, because all of this country fought for independence. Okay, they fought for it, but the first person to actually pull through from decolonization is Ghana, and they did this on the 6th of March 1957. So they gained independence on the 6th of March 1957. So Nigeria gained independence the 1st of October 1960. South Africa gained independence on the 31st of May 1961, and then Kenya, which is the last, on the 12th of December 1963. So in chronological order, according to this data provided, so the first is Ghana, followed 1957, followed by Nigeria 1960, then next is South Africa 1961, and Kenya 1963. So the answer to this question is option C, Ghana. Question 40. One of the programs binding members of the Commonwealth is the dash. The answer to this question is Agenda for Peace. Now, Commonwealth is a free association of former colonies, former territories of the British Empire. So these territories or these colonies were once colonized by the Britain and later gained independence. So one of the programs of this organization is peacemaking and peacekeeping. So option C is the correct answer to this question. Question 41. ECOMOG at the initial stage of its intervention in Liberia was perceived as dash. Option A, neutral. Option B, incompetent. Option C, partisans. Option D, invaders. The answer to this question is option A, neutral. Neutral, they were neither for Samuel Doe or for Charles Taylor. These were the two parties that were majorly involved in the civilian war in Liberia. So ECOMOG intervention was carried out without clearly stated human rights principles and goals. They were not clearly stated. The mission was just to end the bloody war. Okay, so Samuel Doe on his part took over power, overthrew the 1980 president through rebellion, and Charles Taylor, who was under Doe's government, left because of the accusation that he embezzled money. And he left and then formed formed a group against Samuel Doe's government, and it was a group formed from Ivory Coast. So the government, ECOMOG, was neither for Samuel Doe or Charles Taylor. They were neutral. They just came to end the war. So we can't say they are participants, we can't say they are supporters, we can't say they are invaders. Invaders are people who enter into a country forcefully to conquer or to take control of that territory. So the answer, or the best answer to this question, is option A, neutral. Question 42. A major drawback to the NEPAD initiative is its dash. Option A, articulation by few African leaders. Option B, affiliation by few African unions. Option C, inability to empower the youth. Option D, reliance on Western donors for funds. The answer to this question is the reliance on Western donors for funds. Now, a major drawback to NEPAD, which is the new partnership for African development, is an African initiative to overcome the obstacle of African development. But this organization is in partnership with Western countries, mainly for funds. And a list of these countries include USA, UK, Italy, Germany, and so on and so forth. So the answer to this question is option D. If you have questions to ask, please feel free to ask your questions by using the link provided in the description below. Please click on this link. It takes you to the Myschool website. There you can ask as many questions as possible, and solutions will be provided to you ASAP. Now, moving on to question 43. The structures of the African Union includes dash. Okay, so the structures of the African Union includes the Pan-African Parliament, the Peace and the Security Council, and lastly we have the Judicial, Human Rights and Legal Court. Now let's trace this. We can see option A, the Court of Justice, Pan-African Congress and People's Assembly. So we have the Court of Justice, which is in line with the Judicial, Human Rights and Legal Court. So option B, we have Pan-African Parliament, the Court of Justice, and the Peace and Security Council. So this is contained in what I've just explained. So we have the Pan-African Parliament, the Peace and Security Council, lastly the Court of Justice, which represents Judicial, Human Rights, and Legal Court. So option B is the correct answer to this question, and it's the final answer. Do you have better steps, explanation, or solutions to any of this question? Please feel free to use the comment section below. Indicate the question and the solutions you would like to share. Question 44. The African leader mostly credited for spearheading the formation of the African Union is dash. The answer to this question is option A, Muammar Gaddafi. Muammar Gaddafi is a Libyan revolutionary who called for the establishment of African Union. and it was announced in Libya on the 9th of September 1999. So the answer to this question is option A, Muammar Gaddafi. Question 45. The founding members of OPEC are dash. The answer to this question is option D. The founding members of OPEC include Saudi Arabia, Iran, Iraq, Kuwait, and Venezuela. And we can find this in option D. So option D is the correct answer to this question. We've come to the end of the segment. I believe it was impactful. Thank you for joining us, but please do not forget to hit the like button, click on the subscribe button, and lastly, tap on the bell notification to get informed as soon as we release the next videos.